Hey, Rebel Bankers, welcome back. I'm your host, Chris Noggle, and welcome back to the Real Estate Money School. And today I'm joined with Chris Arnold. This is going to be exciting because this is something you do not hear every single day. So Chris Arnold is the founder of REI Radio, and he's done so many things. I'm going to let him tell you a lot about his background and all the different things he's accomplished, like 2,500 deals. But here's what we're really going to get into today. We're going to teach you and talk about what Chris does on the radio. That's right. You remember the old radio? A lot of people don't even know what the radio is anymore, but the radio is effective for finding very motivated sellers. And if you're in the real estate game, that's what you need. You need people that are motivated, that want to sell their houses. And you know what? A lot of people are sick of getting that little mail, that postcard, that yellow letter saying, I want to buy your house. Where do those go? The garbage in most cases. So you got to keep evolving, keep finding new ways and new things that you can do in your business to really, really take and make a mark for yourself and build your business differently than what everybody else is doing. So we're going to get into Chris's story in just a second, but let's start real quick with all of you. Let's start with your journey to becoming a Rebel Banker. That journey begins a lot of ways. Maybe you join us for a wealth webinar. Maybe you watch something online. You go on a YouTube video, you gather knowledge. It's all just gathering all this knowledge. But what do you do with the knowledge is really, that's the important part. What do you do with it? Are you just gathering knowledge, thinking you're smart, learning it all, and then doing nothing with it? Because that's completely useless. The person that said that knowledge is power was full of crap. Knowledge isn't power. Application of knowledge is the real power. And that's what you guys need to do. So what you learned today from Chris, I need you guys to take action on this, because that's what's going to get it done for you. That's what's going to put money in the bank. And that's what's going to create the financial future that you're desiring. And let me go one step further. I'm going to help you all take action and learn how this is. I'm going to do something for free. I'm going to give you a copy of my book, Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery. You guys want this book for free? Go to chrisnoggle.com, one swipe of the index finger and click on free book, and you can have the book. That's taking action. So we're going to get down and talk about Chris, because he's an action taker. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hey, Chris, man, grateful to hang out, man, add some value. So we'll have a good time today.
Absolutely. Tell everybody a little bit about REI Radio and what you do.
Yeah, so I've been in real estate for 15 years. The very first thing I did right when I stepped out of grad school, I was looking for a vehicle, right, that was going to give us, all those things that we want in life, right? We want that freedom of time. We want freedom of resources and so forth. And so along the way, doing real estate for 15 years, you try a lot of things. Some things work, some things don't. Sometimes you take some advice from someone that costs you a lot of money, and sometimes it pays off. And so one of the things I picked up that we'll talk about today is really the best marketing channel that I've ever come across. I've been doing it for 10 years to generate motivated seller leads. Because Chris, you said at the top, it doesn't matter I'm building a rental portfolio or wholesale fix and flip or buying on terms, doing subject to seller financing. We all have one thing in common, and that is we need motivated seller opportunities. And to this day, radio, without question, has been the best marketing channel that I've put in place. And so we help people around the country set it up.
I love that. It is funny because radio is one of those, even some of the things that you look at today, everything's gone digital. Everything is, how many emails do you get in your inbox? You delete most of them. A lot of the sales stuff, you don't ever open it. You just click delete, unless it comes from a trusted source. But when you're listening in your car or in your house or anywhere you are to the radio, a lot of that stuff, you don't think you're paying attention, but you really are. And if you're somebody that has a need, if you're somebody that's got a problem that needs to be solved, like maybe you can't afford your house, you're getting behind in your payments, a lot of these things are happening right now. We're in 2021, just following COVID. There's a lot of trouble out there right now. And when they hear something on the radio, that doesn't just go by the wayside. They can't just click delete. That's implanted in their brain. So Chris, you kind of cracked the code on this. And how did you figure this out? Like, where was it that, in all the different ways you can market to find motivated sellers and motivated leads, like how did you arrive on this little golden nugget?
Yeah, man, I was looking for something different. First and foremost, the longer you're in the marketing game, the more you prefer inbound versus outbound. If you're newer to the game, you're going to spend time because you don't have money, which means you're going to be on the side of cold calling and text blasting and RVMing. But as you get more sophisticated and really start to kind of pad some cushion in the account to be able to spend on marketing rather than time, you're looking for something that's going to be inbound. And so if you look at inbound marketing, it's not like there's a massive amount out of there. And if you look at mass media, which again works for most things, right? Mass media is comprised of three things: radio, television, and billboards. And so radio for us really seemed like a good thing to get in and test. And here's what I love. Like, someone's listening here, Chris, are a couple of things I know that are going through their mind right away. The first thing they're thinking is, man, radio, dude, that's like antiquated. Like, that's old. That's like what my grandparents listened to, right? And I go, absolutely. So here's what you don't realize. The first myth, or the thing that has kept people away from radio, because it's completely wide open, virtually no competition, is the fact that people confuse themselves as their demographic and avatar. So Chris, you and I, when we get into the car, I don't turn on the radio ever. I got a Spotify on my phone. So I'm listening to Pandora, whatever that looks like. That's great. But your demographic, if you look at the majority of single family property deals that are done across the US, the primary demographic is over the age of 50. And they do not pay for a Spotify account. They still get in the car and do what they were always raised to do. And that is they turn on the radio. And when you connect the dot, you're like, my gosh, that's absolutely right. And what a better way that you could think of than getting in front of this demographic than using radio. And that's why it's been such a powerful means to generate and motivated sellers for us.
And these ads you're running, like, I know I read the bio, it talked about explosive ads. Like, what makes these ads really capture their attention? How do you do that?
Yeah, so you have to understand the power of radio. So there are two benefits that you get with radio that, again, I'm going to pick on direct mail, that you don't get on direct mail. Number one is celebrity status. This is where celebrities come from. They come from television. They come from radio. They're now beginning to come from podcasts and social media, which has been interesting, like YouTube. But the thing and what makes it explosive is that when someone hears you on the radio, this is exactly what comes to the conclusion in their mind. If Chris is advertising on the radio, he must be an expert and must know what he's talking about, because only experts can afford to advertise on the radio. Then the second conclusion that they make right behind that is what I call instant credibility, and that's that they trust you. So let's say I send a piece of direct mail and I get a call that comes back. Again, half of those calls are hate calls anyway.
Absolutely.
We know that. But the ones that do call us because they're so desperate, we start on the know you, like you, trust you path way back, because we're both on the phone knowing that I was a spam artist in order to get your attention. And you're talking to me because you're so motivated that you have no other option but to have that conversation. Now think about a radio call that comes in, where when you pick up the phone, they're like, man, you're that guy on the radio that I hear all the time. It's great to be able to talk to you or to deal with your team, whoever's handling that situation. And hey, I'm in this situation and I know that you're the guy to help. Come out to my property. I tell you, the majority of the appointments that we go on, we're the only ones. We're not going up against 5, 6, 7 other wholesalers, fix and flippers that are all competing over direct mail lists or text blasting lists. We're literally by ourselves and we're walking out there. They know us, they like us, and they trust us ever before we talk to them because they kept hearing our radio spots. And that's what makes it explosive.
That is awesome. And let's go back a little bit. Let's go back to the beginning when you first entered real estate. What was life like back then? Like, when you first got into this business, what were you doing? What was it like? Like, how did that happen? Let's do a little bit of a journey back in time and kind of walk through the success.
Like day one, man. Day one.
Let's do it.
I finished grad school. I got a bunch of debt. I convinced my brother that I want to go into real estate. And so he gives me a little small interest loan, right? And how am I going to get in the game? All I know to do at that time to get into real estate, I have no comprehension of wholesaling and like nothing. I'm just coming out of grad school, right? With a master's in theology. And so I'm like, I'll get a license and become an agent. And I went to work for Century 21 as an agent. And here was what I was doing. Walking in the office early in the morning, 6:30, pulling expired for sell by owner lists so that I could be ready to call landlines. This is 15 years ago, roughly starting around 7:45 kind of AM while they're there, doing breakfast in the morning, and have roughly about an hour and a half to catch them before they're off and out of the house. Like that's what I was doing. Going that night, taking a listing, coming back, putting it all in the system myself because I was a one-man show. That's like, that's base level. That's where I was at.
Grinding it out, man. How many other people were there at that hour doing that?
I was the only one in that entire Century 21.
Chris, I knew you were going to say that. And I
Great
knew
question.
that because you were doing something everybody else was unwilling to do. And that is something that so many people need to literally mark down, write down, do what everybody else is unwilling to do. If nobody's in the office doing something at a certain hour, start showing up and do something during that hour, and you will be different. You will have success in doing that. I love that.
It's the principle that the majority is wrong.
It's true.
And what's the old Twain quote? If you ever find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to pause and reflect.
That's a good one to remember. Love that. So what happened after that? So you're getting there early. You're calling all these, these expired listings. Nobody else is in the office. Like, what happened?
I'm taking listings, and I remember I came in with a chip on my shoulder because I laid my business plan down in front of the manager at Century 21 about what I was going to accomplish in the first year, and he laughed at me. Man, I'm like early 20. I'm right out of grad school, man. Like I'm hungry, and I laid my business plan down, and he's just like, nope, not going to happen. So I spent the first year doing everything I could to prove that guy wrong. And I remember coming back in at the end of the year, and he sat down and he looked at me and said, Chris, I want to apologize for ever doubting you. That was a big moment for me, man. A big moment for me. Because I had a lot of self-doubt. Could I do this? Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I didn't have what it took. So I think a lot of that first year was really getting in and understanding my giftedness and really beginning to prove to myself, if I follow these certain principles that I've learned and read about and paid for coaching from, then I'm going to do all right. I'm going to make this happen.
I like that, and I think we've all had those people in our life that have told us, oh, that's stupid. That's not going to work. You can't do that. And that is that fuel. Like that's where that fire gets lit and you're like, I'm going to prove you wrong. And then we set out and you did that. And, I think there's a lot of stories like that. I love that. It's that because there's a lot of other people that don't do what you did and that say, yeah, you're right. It is stupid. They take their business plan, they crumple it up, they throw it out and that's it. And that might've been the best idea, but just because it wasn't conforming with that manager's state of mind or that manager's thought process, all of a sudden that conformity, could have just landed you as just being average, just normal, not doing what you're doing, but you didn't. You decided to create. And I think that's a huge thing. So what happened? Now keep going with this. This is good stuff.
Yeah. So from there, it was all about having what I would call the huevos to really hire that first employee to be responsible for payroll. And so I can tell you roughly about 18 months into the game, somewhere in there, I stepped out and man, I was nervous, but I hired my first assistant. And that was the moment that you learn the difference of what happens in a business when all you do is focus on income producing activities and you get rid of all the busy work. Because there's been a couple of times in my career in which my business doubled, and my business doubled immediately in hiring that first assistant because I got to go out and do the things that I was very best at. And the things I hated, she loved to do, and I got them off my plate and never looked back from there. From there, it was just growing the teams and everything else moving forward.
Yeah. Another way to look at that, folks that are listening to this, he started working on his business, not in his business. He hired his weaknesses and focused on his strengths or his money-making activities. So that's a very important thing. There's very few business owners, especially in the beginning, that ever get to step out of that realm because they're scared of the unknown. They're in their own little comfort zone. When you're doing everything yourself, like you're in control of that. Like, you can accomplish that. You don't have to pay anything more. But what you're actually doing when you're doing that, when you're failing to get out and work on your business, is you're accepting that you are only worth X amount per hour. How much would it cost to hire an assistant to do the paperwork and the listings? $15 an hour, maybe $20 an hour. And you doing it, you're literally admitting to yourself that you're only worth $15 to $20 an hour. Think about that and take that and try to change that and put a dollar value that you're worth and go out and actually exceed that. But if you stay in the trenches, that's all you're going to do. You're going to be worth what that dollar amount would be. Yeah, let's keep rolling. Like it didn't stop there. You hired your assistant. Now you're working on your business. Your business is doubling. Like what happened?
Yeah.
All right, now, I'm sorry. I'm still at Century 21 at this point?
Yeah, I'm at Century 21. Yeah. And so it was the first time I was faced with the fact that I was not going to be able to accomplish what I wanted under the Century 21 model. And so I had my first kind of like, what got you here won't get you there moment, right? Those are hard. And again, I had some loyalty to that place because that was a place, that trusted me as a brand new agent, right? Took me on, sat down with me, helped me through all those basic questions, that really are difficult, for someone seasoned to sit down and go, okay, here's how you put a listing into the MLS, like step by step. And so I made a jump from Century 21 to Keller Williams because I could grow the team model over there. And that was back, if you remember, again, we're going way back, right? The MREA, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book by Keller Williams, that I think shaped a lot of our thinking on the ability to grow a team and to build a business that would one day run without us. And so I made that hop over to KW and started really building a team from there.
And how long were you at KW?
Man, I was there probably for go back, maybe about 5-6 years before I went independent. And again, same thing. By that time, I was investing at a very high level. So doing fix and flip, wholesaling, and all of a sudden, before I knew it, I didn't fit that model, right? I was kind of, bumping up against the goads of what they had in place. And again, I had an exceptional time at Keller Williams, but just like anything, you begin to need to evolve and understand to move on to the next place. And so from there, I went independent and ran my companies apart from any type of other brokerage.
That's phenomenal. And so you were there, and during that time you had built a team. What happened when you went independent? How many of those people went with you? Like, what is that movie with, I believe Tom Cruise? He's like, "Who's coming with me?"
Jerry Maguire, baby.
Jerry Maguire. And then, she's like,
you got the goldfish. That's
the golden the goldfish. And she's like, only one. Like, how many came with you?
100%. I mean, because again, leadership, right? People follow people. They don't stay with any particular brand or company. And so we were looking forward as a team to really be able to be independent and not be under the constraints of another business. And so we went completely out on our own. And as I look back, really great decision, right? Because that now gave me fundamentally autonomy to build everything I wanted. And obviously from there, as we depend on how far down the path we go, but you look today and there's several businesses that we've been able to launch and grow.
That's awesome. Yeah. And you've done a lot. I mean, in your bio, how many total deals have you done in your career?
I think we're somewhere around 2,500 transactions that we've done over the last 15 years. Yeah. A lot of deals.
And at what point did you start transitioning into the radio? So you were doing a lot of the traditional things, I would assume, in those early years, direct mail, cold calling you had mentioned. Like, where was that breaking point where you decided, I got to try something different? Like, how'd that happen?
It was direct mail. It was just beating us up, right? Again, in our heyday, and again, direct mail made us a lot of money. But if you go back to, the early teens, like 13, 14, 15, 16 in there, we got to a place where we were dropping 100,000 pieces of direct mail a month, massive amounts. But again, it's an absolute headache, front end, back end, to manage something like that. And we were getting a great 1 to 4 return at the time. And if you're quadrupling your money on your marketing, you're willing to put up with a lot. But I can tell you that over time it began to drop. And so, pre to that, just dealing with direct mail, we wanted something that was low maintenance. And one of the things that I loved about radio, and I discovered as we were analyzing it, it was set it and forget it. And what I mean by that is if you compare it to something like direct mail that requires a lot of ongoing maintenance, with radio, you pay your bill monthly and you answer the phone when it rings. And I don't know about you, but I never want to launch a marketing channel and feel like I just created an absolutely new job in my business, And there's some marketing channels that require that much maintenance, and radio doesn't do that. It's completely set it and forget it.
Yeah, no, I love the radio model. And, it's funny, like when I read your bio and we've been talking here, I'm thinking, boy, I should be doing more radio, and I think how I would use it would be different than maybe a lot of the other people listening, for just finding those motivated sellers. But I think radio is so unique. Well, let's also talk about like what you did, where we always think that everybody's doing what we're doing. You don't listen to radio, you listen to Spotify. Me, I listen to podcasts in my car. But, I know my mom constantly listens to the radio. All of her friends listen to the radio. So like, let's say we're trying to target that demographic. What is the trick to radio to really making a difference? Like if you wanted to be that voice, that authority, is it consistency and persistency? Like, can you just run some ads? Like, can we get into the weeds a little bit about radio and what is the magic formula?
Yeah, there's a few details. Number one, it's choosing the right station, right? And again, this isn't rocket science, but a lot of people go into radio and they don't go in with a clear demographic. It's just, hey, I'm going to advertise on the radio. So it's a spray and pray model. What I love about radio, and one of the things that makes it work, is you can go in and really niche in. So if we're going to say, okay, we're going after people that are over the age of 50, and you look at 35 radio stations in your market, I'm sorry, but only a percentage of those are going to apply to people over the age of 50. Things like classical music, old school rock, old school country. So first and foremost, man, you got to choose the right genre. But here's what people do. They call into a radio station and they go, hey, I want to advertise. And they call in because it's popular. And again, popular is usually going to be Taylor Swift, right? And those type of stations, they're the biggest and they're the most popular in the area. But just because they're the biggest and most popular does not mean that the demographic that we're looking for listens. And I'm sorry, but a Taylor Swift station does not work for what we're trying to accomplish. So that's number one, I think is super important. Number two is definitely frequency. We're coming in and we're advertising 5 times a day, Monday through Friday. So that's 25 ads per week, 100 per month. So I'll give you an example. One of my favorite radio stories is we got a voicemail one time from a lady, and she said, hey, I'm just calling in. I listen to this classical station I have for a long time. We hear your ad all the time. My kids sit in the back and they can repeat your ad verbatim. You're doing a great job. Keep it up. I mean, can you imagine the value of that 2 kids that aren't even paying attention, staring out the window, because of our frequency, we're literally able to memorize subconsciously our ad. That's great branding. And so when people go to make a decision, man, you are top of the mind. And we are top of the mind because of frequency. If you're doing direct mail, you're not ever getting your message across that clearly. And if you're choosing a list, it's not like you're going to mail that same list for the next 3 years. You're going to hit them X amount of time, and then you're going to go refine the list and so forth. So maybe they hear your message 5, 10 times. But think about radio again and again to a point that kids in a backseat have it memorized. That's a cool marketing channel.
And then you built a business around this concept. Let's get into like where it went from you using it, to generate your real estate to now actually it's kind of taken a shape of its own, correct?
Yeah, I mean, so I kept real quiet on radio for about 10 years. It's my best marketing channel. It's kind of one of those things I had in my back pocket that I knew about and scratched my head that the rest of the investor community had completely overlooked. And after I'd launched other businesses and really kind of began to know what my true passions were, I realized that I was not going to decide to go and take over the entire country and do real estate, like virtual wholesaling and fix and flipping. And so I thought, well, I'm going to use radio in all of these markets. And so at that point, I was like, I'm just sitting on this. As long as I draw a moat right around my area, I don't care if somebody learns it in another state. And so we decided about a year ago to launch REI Radio. And man, it was really well timed because I was grateful to come in and provide something that literally changed the market for people, because people have been really struggling with marketing right now, and a lot of oversaturation and a lot of things not working, and things like text blasting and so forth getting regulated. Just talking to a guy that literally just went through a lawsuit and had to pay for text blasting. Literally, I just had a conversation 2 days ago.
I knew that was coming, man. I
talked to someone that got sued. And so, yeah, people getting concerned about regulation and so forth. So it's like, so what is there? And we come in, honestly, with radio. And so we've been teaching people around the country how to set it up. And it's been an absolute game changer. People love it. They absolutely love it.
Wow. Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, you've got the formula. The formula's tried, tested, you've proved it yourself. So, people have decisions, they can go out there and they can just go run some radio ads. And chances are, if they don't have a plan or a method or a process, they're just not going to say it's not going to work, but they're pretty much throwing money away because they don't really know what they're doing, where you've already figured this out. And you offer this and how does somebody actually work with you, with your company? What does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a team that helps people set this up around the country. From the very beginning, though, I sought to preserve this thing. I didn't want what happened to, direct mail to happen to radio. So where all of a sudden, you walk into someone's houses and there's literally 35 postcards stacked up, right? It's just you can't win. I don't care how good you are at direct mail. It's just that poker table is overcrowded. So the way it works is we provide exclusivity per markets. And so really where you start is you want to check and see if your market's even open. I know at this point we have sold out I think over half of the US at this point, which has been great. But man, the place to start is to ask questions, do your due diligence. And man, you can simply book a call by going to wholesalinginc.com/REI radio. Again, wholesalinginc.com /REI radio and book a call and see if it's a good fit for you for this upcoming year.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely something people need to do. I mean, if you're looking for that new thing, you're just kind of banging your head against the wall. I know a lot of wholesalers, that are just banging their head against the wall. They're like, oh, our KPIs aren't there. I don't know what's going on. It's just not working. Well, and you probably would know this, but if you do the same thing over and over, it's kind of the definite and get the same results. The definition of insanity. I can't remember who was that said that, but who was it that said that thing?
I don't know, but I've heard it repeatedly.
I know, and it's bothered me because it's right at the tip of my tongue. I said it, and I'm like, son of a bitch. I should have known who was. But, it's like if you're doing that and you're not getting the results you want, then you got to pivot, man. This is the time of pivot. COVID has forced pivot for every business out there. It might be pivot and try something new. So folks, you really should get on this, check it out, get on a call with his team and see if this could be the answer to your business. And hey, the nice thing is not everybody's doing this. You could just jump in and I bet you no one else in your market's even doing it right now because they think the same thing that you were probably thinking. Oh, nobody listens to the radio anymore. Precisely. Do what everybody else is unwilling to do. Chris, during this journey, as we kind of wrap here, what would you say, from the beginning to where you're at today was your biggest external obstacle that you had to face?
So not internal, but external?
Yeah, let's do external.
That's interesting you said external because it's usually the internal obstacles. I've been doing business for 15 years. And so I think I've now been around long enough to have gone through now 2 downturns in the market, right? 2008. And then of course, everything via COVID. On top of that, I've actually gone through the life cycle of a couple businesses, meaning that, as my CFO would say, every stabilizer will eventually die, which means you always have to disrupt and begin new forms of revenue. So I think the biggest external factors are learning to deal both with what the market can throw at you and both with the reality that at some point what you're doing is going to become obsolete and need to be changed. And so I think the biggest external factor has always been the ability to be able to pivot sooner and recognize change and to get ahead of it. I think that's probably been the most challenging external factor. And I think that's probably true for most of us.
I like that. And you already gave the place where people can set up a call, but is there anywhere where they can learn more about it? I mean, any social media?
Absolutely.
Let's lay it out.
I interview a lot of students that we help set up radio. Again, it's called proof pudding, right? It's one thing for me to tell you it works, but I love putting students on there. And again, we get a lot of students that are new to the game. One of the things we didn't mention is what is the cost to advertise on radio? Well, our students on average, again, this is small to large markets across the country, east to west coast. The average monthly spend is $1,000 to $2,000.
That's it?
That's it.
Dude.
So we get a large chunk of new students that come in and go, I'm spending that on direct mail. I'm all over this. And then the other thing I can tell you, again, I think the most important question to answer is, well, what's the return? And I tell you, it's a consistent $3 to $4 return. So that means for every dollar, our students are tripling to quadrupling their market spend. So if I spend $1,000, I'm going to make $3,000 to $4,000. So with that, on the fact that it's $1,000 to $2,000, man, we got a lot of great students coming in that have been in the business less than 24 months going, dude, I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm not going against, this person, I mean, that's a tough market. What am I supposed to do? And we come in under the radar and to put them on radio, and they're people you've never heard of. And all of a sudden they're doing deals under everybody's nose. And I love it. I love it because the big dogs completely overlooked it. So if you want to see some of that stuff, you can go to YouTube and subscribe at Chris Arnold Real Estate, and you can check out some videos there.
That's awesome. Yeah, YouTube's a great resource, folks. So go to Chris Arnold or on YouTube and subscribe to his channel and just watch what he's doing. And you guys got to get on this. It's sometimes when you go off that beaten path and you get into the unknown, that's where the real gems are. That's where the real money's at. So try this out. And Chris, I thank you so much for being on and dropping some golden nuggets to our audience here. And for all of you listening, remember, it's not about the knowledge you got on this podcast or any podcast. And it's not about the knowledge you're going to get on YouTube. It's about the application of knowledge. It's always interesting. I wish there was a way for me to test to see how many of you will actually take action on what you just learned here and schedule a call just to take, and see what is it, whether you actually do it or not, but how many of you will actually make that or take that action and get on that call with Chris's team to learn. I don't know, but I'd love to know that. And folks, I already gave you an offer and it was a free one. You guys can go to my website, Chris Noggle, click on free book and grab yourself a copy of Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery. Well, I appreciate you all being here and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. We'll see you on the next episode of the Real Estate Money School.